Well, good morning, everyone. A little bit different look for the Someone You Should Know program. We had a little bit of technical problems. Those pop up from time to time. And Mark Warner and the production studio are actually down this morning. We were down earlier today. We're back on. And that gorgeous looking guy right on the screen with you is Bryan Ball, who is my special guest this morning. Bryan, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Stuart.
Well, we'll take care of just a little bit of business first and then Bryan and I are going to talk a little bit about his life in the military and out. I'm going to try this share screen thing with you because we are brought to you by some of our dear friends. One of them is Christine Dean, who is our marketing guru. Christine knows everything there is to know about marketing and website design and can make the absolute very best out of your company. Whether you need her services or not, reach out to her. She will give you a free consultation, take a look at your website, talk to you a little bit about marketing. If she can help, fine. If not, you've just spent a nice half hour talking to a very, very nice young lady. And she has been a very, very good friend of ours, and we welcome her to the show. Also, we're brought to you by Irving Chung, who is a franchise consultant. If you have ever even remotely thought about what the franchise game is all about, how much it might cost to get involved in a large franchise or even a small service franchise, Irving has all the answers. There are some great new franchises coming on the market that you can get in on the ground floor. You can end up being your own boss and creating your own franchise empire. So get in touch with Irving, and he'll take care of you real good too. And finally, we have a new sponsor of the program. And I'm really pleased to have No Sweat experts with us. Roy Cook and his staff are absolutely magicians when it comes to heating and air conditioning service and supply. They can do it. They can do it for less. If you are a veteran or you are a teacher, you can reach out to them because they give discounts. They also have a great 4-time-a-year maintenance program, which costs less than some of the other companies for twice a year. So reach out to them. The phone number's on the screen. The website's on the screen. Reach out to Roy Cook. Tell him you heard about it on Someone You Should Know. And now that we've taken care of business, it's back to discussion with Bryan Ball. Bryan, I reached out to you because you are a veteran. I thank you for your service. You are also a patriot, and we're gonna have a little bit of uplifting discussion this morning. And with all that's been going on in Afghanistan, you told me your life's an open book and everything's on the table. So I think we may get into a little bit of discussion about Afghanistan. I want you to start by telling our audience a little bit about Bryan Ball. Where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up? I think you're a native Texas boy. And tell us a little bit about it. What your life is all about prior to joining the Army.
So I grew up in Grapevine, Texas, back when it was a small town. For anybody listening that's familiar with that area, it's all kind of grown together. Barely find my way through there anymore, but but it was a great place to grow up. All the stuff that kids used to do, and probably I don't know if they do anymore, but like running through the woods and going to the lake and fishing all summer. And
you got to drive 50 miles to find the woods now.
Yeah, you sure do. Seems that way for sure. But yeah, it was just a great place to grow up. Graduated from Colleyville Heritage High School, 2002, and kind of bounced around town a little bit. Worked in a body shop for a while, some little jobs here and there, and finally decided to join the military.
And what prompted your decision? Because back in 2002, you said you graduated from high school. So about that time, I mean, we were already into the war in Iraq. And what was it that said to you, I'm going to go into the military?
Well, honestly, it's something I'd been wanting to do since I was a kid. And it was really more something that stopped me from going in. So my later high school years, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and had really kind of, as moms will do, she didn't want me to go into the military, especially in a time of war. She knew me pretty well, and she knows that if that's going on, that I want to be at the front, and I don't want to hang out in the back. And I was going to do something crazy like jump out of planes and want to shoot machine guns and go door to door, and she was right. And so, but we'll get into that in a minute, I guess. Anyway, she kind of convinced me to hold back, try some other things. And so I did for a few years, and I didn't end up joining until 2007.
She figured if you were going to go in the military and had a fascination with working on cars, that maybe you just go into the maintenance,
Yeah,
but
well,
that wasn't your idea.
No, absolutely not. I also grew up, shooting guns and stuff with my family. We're a big firearms family, and I've been shooting since I was probably 4 or 5, and love doing it. And she knows if I have the chance to shoot some cool stuff that I would have the chance to shoot again, I'm all over that. So,
so you went into service. Where did you start your service?
So I started at Fort Benning in the infantry, and then did airborne school. Spent a little time in RIP. I think it's ROPE now, formerly RIP. Didn't work out so well for me there, but I ended up going and joining I was with the 173rd Airborne out of Vicenza, Italy, is where I spent the majority of my time.
Do you happen to know Patrick Cromery?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Patrick Cromery had been a guest on my show. Patrick Cromery is probably close to, well, I don't want to age him, but I know he's beyond 50 years old. And he also is with the 173rd out of Vicenza, Italy. And he has been working his butt off because he wants to go on record as being the oldest paratrooper with the 173rd to make a successful jump. So in his 50s and maybe approaching 60 now, he's planning on doing that. But
very cool.
Yep, he's a crazy guy, jumping out of airplanes and stuff like that. And I guess anybody that jumps out of airplanes and stuff has got to be a little bit crazy.
A little bit.
But I mean, it was challenging for you. So you were based out of Italy for a while. Then what progressed with you and your unit while you were over there?
So I got there in, I guess it was October, I think, of 2007. And when I got there, the unit was already deployed. And so I was there for about a month, did a quick workup sorry, light just turned off there. There you go. Did a quick workup in Germany on my way out. And like I said, within about a month, I was on the ground in Afghanistan, and kind of pretty much went through with a few other guys that had come over with me and met up with my unit where they were operating.
So you were in Afghanistan. What year was that? So we're up to what, about 2004?
That was 2007.
2007. How long of a deployment were you in Afghanistan? And did you go back to Italy or to Germany?
So that was, for me, it was about a 10 or 11 month deployment. For the unit, it was a 15-month deployment. So they had been there for a little while when I caught up with them. When we did redeploy, we did go back to Italy for about a little over a year. And then we did a second deployment in 2009.
In 2009, that was your second deployment, and that's where your personal story gets not only interesting but borderline scary.
Yeah.
That second deployment in 2009, what happened?
Yeah. So, I mean, we had a lot of contact on the first one. And, you know, as the military goes, I end up being one of the more seasoned guys in my platoon for the second one because of that. And so I was the one out in front leading patrols and such on that second one. And a few weeks in wasn't very long at all. I think we'd only been in country 6 weeks or so. And I was only a couple weeks there we were in the Tangi Valley, if anyone knows where that is. We'd only been there for a couple weeks, and I was leading a patrol and stepped on a IED. And all in all, didn't do as much damage as you're probably thinking, but it was 4 mortar rounds buried in the wall, and I was almost right on top of it.
I can't even imagine what goes through your head when something like that happens, because you know, for those that are watching and listening and all that may not be totally familiar, explain what an IED is, and I'm just going to ask you straight up front, what was the circumstance when you and your unit approached that device?
So an IED, improvised explosive device, you know, it's just made up of different things. And it happened to be buried in a mud wall that was kind of separating, it was being used more like a fence, separating some fields. And yeah, the story is I was walking through and saw an old corroded battery sitting on a wall, and you know, trash doesn't really sit around over there. So I had a knife and I tried to kind of dig into the wall a little bit, see if I could find a wire. But it's hard, it's about hard as concrete. So no success there. Had a whole patrol behind me sitting on open on a road that we had to get off the road. And so I got the order to keep moving forward. And when I did, there was an adjacent wall that had the mortar rounds buried in it. I was later told it was 4 82 millimeter Chinese mortars, which is about a mid-size mortar. And the guy was about 1,000 yards off or so, and with a wire connected it, and so he set it off on me. I was again later told that there was a secondary in front of where I got blown up. That was the one that was meant for me, and the one that actually got me was meant for our command element, because they knew our spacing and everything else. And the fact that I had dug around in the wall, I think he just got nervous and took what he could get.
Were you the only one at that incident that was injured?
I was, and I'm thankful for that. You know, but the units are made up at that time. I was 24, I think, and you know, I had a team full of 18-year-olds. So I'm glad it was me. I'm glad it was that I was the only one. And for a bad situation, it really did work out the best way it could have.
So were you conscious through this whole thing, or when this thing went off, it just kind of put you into shock and you went out?
Yeah, well, that is kind of an interesting story there, because I was stepping off. I was in mid-step off of the wall when it went off, and I remember just kind of seeing like everything went really dark in an instant, and then all of a sudden everything was clear again. This is how I remember it, of course. And I was laying on the ground, and I was kind of just confused I said, you know, did I just fall over? Like what? And don't remember it. What on earth happened? And when I went to kind of roll over and stand up, that's when I saw that, you know, my glove was busted open and there was a lot of blood coming out. And that's when I realized I'd been hit, and I should probably lay there for a minute. That's when I recognized that our medic was next to me. And I was later told that I had been blacked out for a little while, and I just didn't, there was a section of time there that is just gone for me.
So somebody was watching over you. You do have some residual, you know, physical issues.
Yeah.
and all. I believe, and I mean, it's your call, but I believe that you have injuries to one of your hands,
Yep.
um, and missing a finger there. So, can you still palm a basketball?
No.
No. Go softball.
Softball. I can still follow softball. Yeah. But
We-
I can still shoot, and I can still type, and I can still do anything that I really need to do.
are you right-handed?
Very.
Very right hand. Okay. So did you have to learn to use your left hand through this time? Are you ambidextrous now, or you just know how to write with your right hand now, just a little
You
differently?
know, I was lucky enough to get coddled by a beautiful woman who's now my wife when I got hurt, and she signed a lot of things for me. Signed me into a lot of clinics and things like that because she saw me try to do it with my left and felt bad for me and took over.
Well, and that is a fascinating part of the story, and I want to get to that. But you were from the scene. You said the medics were right there. You were medevaced where for recovery?
So I was originally medevaced. It took about 45 minutes or so for the medevac to come in because we were still taking fire
Right.
after the explosion. And so when the Black Hawk came in, originally flew me out to a better aid station than we had at our local area, a place called Fob Shank that is, I don't believe there anymore. Well, obviously none of them are there anymore, right?
Right.
And then from there, that's where they put me out. From there, they flew me to Bagram Air Base for just a real short while, then to Germany and Longstuhl. And then within 3 days, I was at Walter Reed in Washington, D.C.
What were the extent of your injuries? Beyond obviously the injury to your right hand.
So originally, this is the hand. They originally they took the middle finger out is what they took, and they wanted to take the index and the pinky as well. And I didn't want them to take any of them. They had to show me some pictures from the OR as to even get the middle one. But there was also, you would think I'd have lost leg or something like that, but legs are fine. I broke one of my kneecaps. I have some shrapnel scars and some burns in my thighs and abdomen. They took out half of my colon for just because it was kind of shredded. All the other things that go with the TBI or go with the explosion, like TBI. Some vertebrae got a little shifted and rocked. All in all, as far as only losing a finger on something like that is really, you're right. Somebody's looking over me.
You mentioned TBI, and again, for those that are watching and listening who may not be familiar, that's a traumatic brain injury. And what happened there, and is there any residual effect from that you have?
Depends on if you ask me or my wife, I guess. It's no, I think I've gotten by pretty well. So I was a little worried about that, but when I eventually got out, I went back to school and I had no issues getting through that. And so I get.
So the thought process or memory retention and everything that wasn't affected.
My memory is not the best, but I don't know if it's just because I got a busier life now than I used to, or if it's really a result of that. I'm not sure. I think that probably the bigger issue is, and I don't know if there's a correlation in this, but I think there's something to when your central nervous system gets rocked like that, gets like every once in a while you get like a hot flash comes out of nowhere, you get like weird stuff like that. But all in all, nothing that's not pretty easy to get around.
You able to cope with any flashbacks or post-traumatic stress, any of that?
I might be in my own school of thought on that one, but I don't think I have it. I think I'm definitely more vigilant than your average civilian walking around, as I think probably most military people are. You get trained to have your head on a swivel, and that doesn't really leave you. But that's not necessarily a bad thing either.
Right.
All in all, I don't think that anything I did overseas was the wrong thing to do. I don't have any regrets about anything I did. And I sleep pretty well at night.
Well, you and I share a little bit of something in common because I'm a Vietnam veteran. And to this day, and I'll ask you the question because it does affect me, loud noises still do affect me. 4th of July is not one of my favorite holidays. In fact, even if my wife drops a piece of silverware on the floor or something, I to this day I will still jump a little bit. The VA has said, yeah, it's probably a mild form of post-traumatic stress, but gosh, anybody that's ever been in any kind of a traumatic situation and all can suffer what we now call post-traumatic stress. Do you find yourself the same way that even though you're a guy who likes to go out and shoot guns, loud sounds, do they still, affect you in any way?
The really high pitched ones do. They make, again, it's probably part of the TBI or something, but like real high pitched stuff, it makes my ears ring and almost makes them feel like they're bleeding sometimes. It's a weird feeling. But if 4th of July, explosions, guns, stuff like that, if I know it's coming, it doesn't really, I'm just used to it, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe having been used to stuff like that since I was so little probably helps with that. But it just doesn't bother me that much. Obviously, if I'm not ready for it, then that's a little bit of a different story.
Yeah. And that sometimes happens on the 3rd of July. Some people want to get started early and everything. And so it catches you a little bit off guard. Like you said, you're waiting for it. I want to go back a little bit to I guess it was at Walter Reed or something where your wife, who now is your wife, she was a girlfriend at that time. And when you were injured, where was that relationship on the day that you stepped on the IED?
So we were boyfriend and girlfriend. We had many conversations and had plans to try to make something happen when I came home for R&R. Maybe even go over to Vegas and have Elvis do it, something like that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And but it just didn't work out that way. And so she, it's funny because she loves this story because my dad was the first one to get the call. By that point, my mom had passed, and so my dad got the call and was on his way to DC when he called and let her know that I had been hit. And her dad bought her a ticket and said, you need to be there. Even though my dad was saying, hey, the doctors say that when he wakes up, he's not gonna recognize anybody. There's no point in being here now. But she wouldn't listen to that, and she was going to be there. And sure enough, the second I opened my eyes, she was the first person I saw, and I was like, "Hey, babe, what's going?" And so she loves that story. And so I was hit on December 22nd of 2009. I woke up on Christmas Day of 2009, and we were married on February 10th
of 2010.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she was.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. February 10th was the original day. We're married on February 26th of 2010. So just a couple months. I had been outpatient for not even a month yet.
And so was that was basically the end of your military service where you discharged at that point?
No, I did. I spent a month inpatient. doing surgery, a lot of surgeries. And then I spent the next year doing outpatient surgeries and rehab and recovery. And then it kind of came to the point where I needed to start the med board because they wanted me to be as good as I was going to get before I went down that path. And I made the call to go ahead and transfer back to Texas to Fort Sam Houston and San Antonio, because I just didn't have any desire to get out in DC. Nothing against DC, it's just not home.
Right.
And I wanted to be back in Texas. And so they transferred me back to Fort Sam, and I started the med board process then. That is a long, arduous process. And I didn't actually get out until April of 2013.
I think the most amazing, and we almost just passed right over it. Jessica was there when you woke up, and I mean, it was like I can only imagine. She looked down in your face and says, "Buddy, you ain't getting away." You said you got married 2 months later, and I mean, you're still in recovery and all, and you're thinking, was your first thought, hell yes, I want to get married now, or were you at a point where I'm not sure what's going on yet here? You said she was and probably still is a pretty much take charge kind of a person.
She is. She absolutely is. She's an OR nurse now, and she said that I'm
really
a big part of her motivation for doing that. So she she got to kind of work on me and keep me patched up in our room there and at Walter Reed. We got back to Texas. She did some teaching for a little while. And then when we started having kids, we have 3 kids. And when we had our second and third, she stayed home. And so, and if this doesn't tell you how incredible she is, she stayed home with the 3 girls and decided about 2 years ago that she wanted to go into nursing. Something she'd wanted to do for a long time, and the time was right that she wanted to pursue it. And so of course I encouraged that. And so she did online nursing school at night after raising 3 kids all day, and now works for Baylor Dallas in the OR.
Boy, I don't know who's the bigger hero, you or her.
Her, 100%.
hands down. You got the answer to that question.
Yeah, easy.
So you got 3 girls. That in itself is a challenge. How old are they now?
9, 5, and 3.
9, 5, and 3. Oh boy, have you got some days ahead of you?
Yes, sir.
My wife is the middle of 3 daughters.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my wife is the youngest of 3.
Oh, really?
Girls. Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right. So she kind of knows what's coming.
Yeah, but I don't. I'm an only child, and I grew up with all boys. I'm as lost as I've ever been.
But yeah, I gotta believe that you're in 7th heaven though with those 4 ladies in your life.
Oh yeah, they take good care of me. They keep me honest for sure.
That's so. You are now into the about what 2014 we're up to and all, and now you're out of the military. What does Bryan decide he's going to do? What's the next challenge in your life? You're married now, and by this time you have what, 1 child already?
So I had 1 child while I was still in, and finally decided that, I tried talking to some of the different government agencies about going to work for them, and they all wanted a degree, which I didn't have yet. And so the choice to go back to school became pretty easy for me. So I started off as engineering, on engineering track. And when I realized that I was spending more time at school than I was with my newborn daughter, I wasn't a fan of that. And so I switched over to the business school and never looked back. And by the time I finished school, we had the other 2 kids, and and so it was a busy few years for sure. So I think Eventually when we got back up here to the DFW area, I finished school at UTA, University of Texas Arlington, and did a finance degree and an MBA. Just knocked them out as quick as I could, so I could get to work and start making some money to support the family.
Did you at any point feel that, you know, what you experienced in Afghanistan was going to maybe hinder your ability to get those degrees? Or were you just so determined, and also your mental faculties were so intact that you were able to handle it without a lot of challenge?
I mean, it's just a different type of challenge. You just got to gear up and adapt, adapt, improvise,
Right.
overcome. Right. So, it was definitely, culturally, it was, an eye opener, I think. That was probably the biggest thing is, the average college kid, I think, is just, anytime I would mention it, they would, I would get comments like, oh, it's like Call of Duty, or, like a video game, or in this movie. And it's like, man, like, y'all have no idea. They have no idea.
And you're also one of the oldest people in your classes, probably.
When I was doing my undergrad, definitely.
Yeah.
Once I got to my graduate classes, I was pretty much there.
So you're
And I
out of
enjoyed those a
school
lot
now.
more.
You got your degrees and all. What's next for you? What did you do? You got now 2 kids at this point, or you got all 3
I
by the
had
time?
3. I had all 3 by the time I graduated.
You got a wife, 3 kids, a brand new degree, trying to decide, where am I going from here? Where did you
Yeah.
go from there?
So I ended up taking a job with a bank here in McKinney, and I was underwriting commercial loans for them. And then I stayed with them for a little under 2 years, then moved to the bank that I'm currently at, where I took over the underwriting team, and eventually moved into a commercial lender position. That's what I do now.
Do you enjoy it?
It's fun. It's fun to help people. It's fun to, I always enjoy hearing what people are passionate about. And I think this is something else we can probably relate on. It's fun when you get to ask people about, because when somebody owns a business, that's their baby. And it's fun when you get to ask them about it, and you can just see them get excited, and they want to tell you all the ins and outs of it, and then when you get to help them grow that business, that is really cool.
Do you get the feeling that it's a little bit of a little payback for you, that a lot of people were there to help you, and now this is your way of helping other people?
I definitely try to make it that, for sure. I could very easily not be here doing this at all, and that's not lost on me. And so, it's an opportunity. I do try to make the most of the opportunity here. I happen to work for a bank that kind of lets me pretty much do what I want to do. Gives me a lot of free reign. And so I really do try to focus my efforts on, and make the most of it.
And you are with the First United Bank.
Yep.
And I'll want to make that known to the people that are listening and watching, because if you need, what is it, commercial loans you work mostly with?
I'm on the commercial side. We do a little bit of everything here, but I'm on the commercial side.
All right. Well, if you need somebody to help you with a commercial loan and all, you can reach out to Bryan Ball at First United, isn't it? Yep. It's an amazing story. It is an amazing story, and I'm in awe of you. And I hate to be a cliche, Bryan, but when I see you, and I first met you through the DFW Veterans Chamber of Commerce, to hear your initial story and everything, because we all introduce ourselves at the meetings and who we are, but it was the backstory that I heard, and I thought, I'm in the presence of a hero, and I maybe you don't see that. Have other people called you that?
I mean, I've heard it. I typically, I don't really feel that way. I mean, I think everyone's just doing their job. So it's not, there's nothing heroic about it. You just do what you got to do to get back home and try to, again, just try to stay with your buddies next to you and protect them. And it's really all there is to it.
Well, and the reason that I say that, and I see that heroism is because just like those that returned from the Vietnam War, you had two paths to go down. You could either take a positive path to rebuild your life and accept every challenge that was in front of you, or the other path was a path of depression, and feeling sorry for yourself and just let the system take care of you and whatever. And it is something that I think we as veterans have the biggest thought process and challenge, and that is to make sure that as many of our brothers and sisters who come back from service in the military try to find that positive path to go down, to rebuild their lives, to reach out to each other. So that kind of leads me to my next thought process, and that is the news of the past week or two and what's going on. We're now officially, we are out of Afghanistan. There's all kinds of political viewpoints about it. You know, some people still are now calling us losers. Others are saying it was the right thing to do. For one who served there, for one who experienced what you went through, do you feel that it was the right time and the right move for us to remove our troops from Afghanistan?
I think that, you know, obviously we never wanted to be there forever. So at some point you have to pull out at some point. I think that the route to that should have started 18 years ago. I think that it was a war that wasn't, I never thought the politicians let us fight it the right way. Even when I was there in 07, they tried to make it really diplomatic from the political standpoint, even though boots on the ground saw things very differently. And it was never a secret among throughout the military. It was just, you know, the media didn't quite cover it that way, and the politicians didn't spin it that way. You know, at the end of the day, as far as losing the war, you know, whatever it might be, it's look, the guys on the ground, regardless of why we joined, we're fighting for one another, right? And that's a just cause, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? As long as you do that, then you did the right thing. The guys that were over there as of, I believe it was yesterday, was when the last bird took off, trying to rescue the right people as best they could. That's a just cause. Good for them. The politicians are the ones that lost this war, and shame on them for trying to fight it the way they did. I think it's a shame the way they handled it and the way they pulled out and left so many things to the enemy, and allowed them to use it as the propaganda as a victory. To me, I feel like that's, for the buddies that didn't come home, I feel like that's you know, again, those buddies, they died doing the right thing, and I'm proud of them. But I feel like that our so-called leaders of our country just spit in their family's face by doing it that way.
You know, you have no idea how the words deja vu are rolling around in my head, because when we left Vietnam, it was because we didn't lose the war. It just that our presence there just didn't mean anything anymore. The South Vietnamese, they were the ones that seemed to be giving up. It appears to me that in Afghanistan over the last few years, The Afghans themselves were just not forward enough to want to control and defend their own country. And so it was like we were supposed to be there to do it for them. This warfare in Afghanistan was very much like Vietnam. The main difference with Vietnam was there was North Vietnam on one side and there was South Vietnam on the other side, and there were more defined battlefield lines. But what was very, very similar was in Vietnam, we also did not put the war in the hands of our military leaders and say, you got a mission, go out and do it. And whatever way you think is right, just do it. Everything had to be approved back by Congress. And it seemed like there was a little bit too much political involvement again. Was it the right thing for us to pull out? Yes, I think, as you said, for a war to go on for 20 years, believe me, that war could have gone on for another 20, 30, 40 years and probably would have had the same outcome. The bad guys are more than willing to hunker down in the hills and just wait for the right opportunity. So I think we needed to do what we had to do, and you can argue it till you're blue in the face as what the timing was. We're out now. We still need to go back and take care of the odds and ends, and we will. But I thought we had learned from Vietnam, and I never thought I would see this country get involved in something like Iraq and Afghanistan, but we did. And the one thing that I can tell you is that those of us from Vietnam, and we're dying off at an alarming rate now, but we had a phrase was, to never forget and never leave a brother behind. And I think that carried forward into Afghanistan. And I think that you will find that the Iraqi and Afghan veterans and all, they will form their own groups and everything, and their own support groups and all to interact. But you can reach out to the Vietnam veterans for assistance and all anytime, because we'll be there, because we said we would never leave anybody behind. And I think that's a fair thing that we can still say going forward.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think it is kind of, I've never liked the way the Vietnam vets were treated when they came home. I think that's a shame as well. But so I think there's always been, even though we weren't treated that way, I feel like our generation's been treated extremely well. But it's because of you guys that happened. It's all, every time you come home and there's people there to greet you, it's a huge group of Vietnam vets. So I'm very appreciative for everybody that served back then. And you're right, there is some, I can totally see the deja vu. I mean, never felt closer to y'all than I do now. So.
Well, and I don't want to see anything that we went through happen to your generation. I don't want anybody to look at our returning Afghan veterans and saying, "Oh, you were part of that war that we lost." It wasn't that way. This was not a win-lose situation. We were there to help, as there were other nations that were there to help the Afghans, decades ago. Yeah. We went into Vietnam because the French finally said we've done all that we can do, and we went in. We did all we could do, and we left. Same thing in the Middle East. There have been other countries that have been there and tried to help and pulled out. We're just another one of them, and it's sorry to see that the world, political situation is such that we still live with unrest. We can't live as brothers and sisters on one earth together. There will always be conflicts, but gosh, I just hope that maybe we will finally accept the fact that the United States can't be the world's police force.
Well, the scariest part to me is just when you look at who we were fighting, it's very ideological, and handing them this the so-called, I hate to call it a moral victory, but ideological victory anyway. And then being able to use it as propaganda is just, it's a stimulus to their movement. And that's the part I hate. I fear that we're going to see more attacks, more hits even on our soil because of it. And that's what scares me.
Yeah. And Bryan, I can't thank you enough for your candor and openness as one veteran to another. I wish you the very best. I am still, before I end this program, I gotta tell you how much in awe I am of your sweet Jessica.
I'll have to introduce you someday.
Because and I've seen photos, and the two of you are like Forrest Gump. You're like peas and carrots together.
And Jenny.
And with your three girls. And I understand one little quote I happened to get through a previous conversation when I reached out to you to confirm our interview today. You didn't get back to me for a few days. And so I wrote again to you and I said, did you get my previous? And you said to me that you were out of phone and email range for a few days because you were out hiking through Arkansas. So
yep.
Obviously what you went through in Afghanistan has not diminished your passion for the outdoors and getting out there and hiking and shooting and enjoying life. And you're to be commended for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
And again, folks, you need any help with commercial loans and everything, there's the guy to contact. And if you don't know how to contact him, you contact me and I'll hook you up.
That sounds good.
Bryan, thank you very, very much for spending some time with me today on Someone You Should Know. You definitely are someone you should know. And for those that are watching the show, thank you for this little bit of shifting that we had to do to get the program on. And I always say, go out and be yourself because everyone else is taken. And I firmly believe that. And I think Bryan will back me up on that also. So you 100%. All go out and make it a good day. Thanks for spending time with us on Someone You Should Know. Go out and make it a great day. Thanks again, Bryan.